Good.
Sorry, I should have asked first, but I want to, if we capture anything and we need to try and remember it, I want at least recorded. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Deb.
So, I have a friend who's got receding gums, and she's now using the dental combination from Dr. Christopher, and that's good. Variety of things, different friends with different things, but I'm wondering if anybody has. I have not yet really approached other people about using muscle testing, and I'm wondering what you all are doing and what success you've had in that, how you kind of approach that.
That's an open question, so anybody jump in.
I haven't been really showing other people how to use the yes and no questions either. So I'm not much help on that one.
Me neither. I've been out of commission for about 3 weeks.
I hope that healing process is going well. But Sarah, you have taught muscle testing before, haven't you?
What's that, Fred?
You have taught other people muscle testing.
Yeah, quite a bit.
How do you approach it when you try and teach it?
I'm usually in a session with them, and I'll say, let's have you test this one. You can do it, and just try to encourage them that way. Most of them try it, and we'll do it at home, but I have a few who just don't have the confidence.
And I use a lot the same methodology. I, of course, teach it to them on the first one, use it clear throughout, and then I ask them to pick up and take over. I have some that I've been working with for up to 6 months, and they just refuse to take responsibility for their own muscle testing. And it is a new language. It takes time to learn. So it's not like they can just do nothing and then expect it to come. I met with one of those just yesterday, and I'm going, you have to take over because you're not able to make any progress unless you're learning your own stuff on a daily basis. So good question, Deb. It's interesting. I've also found a lot of people, probably 2/3 to 3/4 of people, that can instantly learn it. So it's worth just approaching the topic. And so if they have that tool for a daily tool.
I've been playing around with that pendulum and getting to learn that language. And I was thinking if I could show them something that they can just hold on to and see there's a yes or no to it, that they would then be more, would use the yes or no more in daily life activities. So
the way that can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know how this thing works. The way that really helped me was, because I was extremely unconfident, was just knowing I'm going to take these herbs every day. It's not going to hurt me if I get it wrong, so I would just keep doing it, and then it became natural, but I had to know that, like, I'm not going to harm myself. If I get a yes and it's really no, it's okay, and then over time, so that's one way to overcome the lack of confidence.
And I love that herbs will not hurt you, neither will food, because we've all been eating our entire life and we haven't damaged ourselves with it, but we can hone that. So testing herbs and testing food are the two things that are so powerful in gaining confidence in the muscle testing. So thank you, Len. That's absolutely one of the quickest ways to introduce them to it, and to just say, you can't kill yourself using safe herbs and safe food, and you'll gain confidence as you go. And I've found that in multiple people. So thank you. Anything else, Deb?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Who's next?
I'd like to share. I just want to share that I had told my friend Barb about Fred, and she has been in poor health to where she doesn't even, can really not function for years, and has done everything in the book. I mean, I'm doing this test and I'm having this and I've been studying this and I took this and I went to this doctor and I, like just done 1,000 things and not getting better. And she went to Fred, and I'm assuming that you worked through some of the opening of the gateways or whatever of the things, and she's doing amazingly better, but what doesn't know that's why. And so like I'm just annoyed because she's got, I don't know, I'm just doing a lot better. I wonder what, and I'm like, you did just go see Fred and he did that thing to your body. So that's kind of frustrating, and yet cool at the same time. Like she's functioning better than I have seen her in years. Just
It
from
is thank you, Lynn. And the process works. And I'd invite each one of you to go ahead and walk through that process with a family member or a friend. Just take the sheet and walk through it with them. Because interestingly, once we learn the process and we trust it, turn everything on, get the power and light going, clear out the heavy metals, use the emotional tool if they need it, get them doing their own muscle testing. That simple few steps, the process, like you say, it worked. It worked for her. It works for everybody. I have yet to have anyone that it doesn't work on if they will consistently follow the process.
Yeah. So it would help me because I'm kind of overwhelmed by everything. If somehow we could make some kind of a step-by-step something, and maybe we've got one. I'm looking through my papers of how we might do that with a client, just step by step. And I mean, do we have that? Because I'm not seeing it.
Lynn, I think that was probably the biggest question everyone else asked the morning that you were
But I was gone.
Uh-huh. And just walk through one step at a time. We have the videos of that morning.
Oh, good.
Let me find those and just send the links to what things are in what. In fact, I better make a note right now or I won't remember to send that.
Will you send that to all of us?
Yes, I will. Because that process,
especially like the opening, how did you terminate like opening each one?
Well, just clearing the blocks and turning back on the power and light is the
turning
first.
back the power and lights. I haven't really done that with you in our personal session. So I didn't, so that's the one where I'm a little bit unconfident,
Yeah,
well,
for you, it's always been the first step, but for you, that was so long ago, you probably don't remember it much.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that we every day clear our hidden blocks and everything, but turning on that power and light, I just don't have the terminology or, just. So that would be, because I think if I had like a step by step, I really would actually reach out to some friends and go for it. I haven't done it yet, but I would like to, especially after seeing her. I'm like, it's crazy. She's not been well. So it's, I mean, crazy how much that matters,
Can you describe a little bit more what her progress looks like?
Well, okay, she's just been like miserable, like having headaches and not feeling well, no energy, and literally not getting out. And like she had been living in Mexico, and she came up here the last 6 months to see doctors and do all this stuff. And she needed to go back because she's decided to move here and she has her stuff down there. She couldn't go back because she didn't even have the wherewithal to go down there. We had us together. We were going to go in September before she saw Fred, and she had to cancel because she knew she wouldn't even be able to get on the plane. Now she's on the plane today. It's like,
oh, wonderful.
And I mean, I'm seriously, she's been going to try to go back for months, and it's like, I mean, it was just obvious to me because you can't believe how many things she's done, like this test and this, and she's researching, I'm going to have this certain blood test. I'm going to go to this company out in Massachusetts will do this test and they're going to tell me this and I'm going to take this. I mean, it went on forever and like nothing was changing. And now it's changed. She's like, I don't know what happened. You know, I'm like, well, what about Fred? You know, that's the frustrating part when people really don't get, you know, which is pretty common, you know, they don't know.
And I don't remember exactly how many times we met, but I think we've only met twice.
I know, but I think it was the turning on the lights.
Uh-huh.
She has really good eating habits and really good all these other things, but the lights weren't turned on, you know. She takes a lot of supplement, you know, like she's very aware that it wasn't helping, you know. So here you did that, and then all of a sudden things are working. So,
go ahead.
oh, anyway, I just excited to get a more clear way of doing this, and I want to do it. So
yeah, and I'm confident that each one of you have enough skill to do that also. It's not a matter of not having the skill, it's just a matter of playing with it often enough so that you can recognize the pattern as it goes through. Because once you get into that pattern, you can do it consistently with people and then keep them going. Because if they're not willing to keep going, it's really hard for them to make a difference.
yeah,
they do need to turn things on and then keep going on it. So, hey, thank you for sharing that, Lynn. And she hadn't shared with me that it had changed, so it's good to have feedback from someone else.
But you do see that where people are in denial, you know, like something happens right in front of them, they're like, nothing happened, I don't know.
Well, here's the other thing to remember. We don't notice when something's not wrong anymore.
Right.
And so it's kind of strange that while it's not working, it's constantly on our mind. But once it's cleared, we're going, well, everything's just normal. I didn't do anything. It's just normal. So that's the norm. Everything's just normal now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Well, I've been using the system just basically for myself, and when my children come around or grandchildren come around, I'll kind of mention asking themselves yes or no whether they should be taking that or doing that. So, but what I found for myself is that the categories of assessing, like the glands or the mind, the different systems, that there's systems out there that aren't listed on your list. And so for me, there was a couple things like the basal ganglia and the substantia nigra, such like that. I added to the list because it was something I needed. So, and the categories. So anyway, the list has changed for me of what to evaluate or look at.
Yeah.
It depends upon the person, I think, and what their needs are. But just the one category like glands, there's just so many more parts to that. And that's what I'm finding more and more. And then trying to identify what that basal ganglia or the substantia nigra, what purpose or what wisdom that gland or part of the brain does for you. So that helps me then identify some issues that I've been having. So.
And thank you, Pat. Those couple of areas, there's 3 or 4 new areas of the brain that have been especially important for anyone suffering with neurological challenges, because I've got several other clients with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Down syndrome, dementia, any of those things, and checking those other few areas of the brain make a huge difference. So I'll mention those more when I get to sharing the stepping forward into that. I still don't have enough feedback. Sarah, you want to jump
Yes.
in?
I'm still a little foggy, but it's interesting since our one meeting that we had at your house, the class. I've taken several classes this summer because I'm a massage therapist and other things. And one of the things that, as I was restudying my craniosacral thing, is the electrical system that goes to each organ. And so what I've been doing with my clients is once I clear an organ or a gland, I will reset the electrical system for that gland. And then I reset all of the electrical circuits and systems to work in harmony with that gland. Because it's kind of like we have a team of soccer players, and all of a sudden we've changed one player, and the rest of the team is saying, hey, who do you think you are? We've been here forever. And so just resetting them all to work together in harmony, I have felt has made a difference.
I like that. And I found it, I've titled it a tiny bit different, but I found it true that once somebody is working at 100%, you have to ask the rest of them work in harmony or step down from 104, 108, or whatever percent. And so that's been multiple times applied recently, is just going, hey guys, you have to actually just do your part now instead. And I like your terminology though. I like that work in harmony together. I'm going to definitely apply that one, because that's the key, is everything inside of us has to work in harmony. And yes, some of them have been picking up the extra load for a long time, making up for someone else who hasn't been willing to work or hasn't been capable of working. Yeah. Beautiful. Other thoughts, Sarah?
A minute ago, you were talking about muscle testing. And as I was working with a client the other day, we were right in the middle of a session and her polarity switched. She started testing yes for no and no for yes. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention to just kind of check into that once in a while. Just say yes and test it, say no and test it. My name is Susie and test, just that's something else that's come up for me lately, is just that making sure that they stay on the correct polarity during the whole treatment. That's about all I have right now.
And Sarah, I'm going to ask a telling question to see if it's a similar experience that I've had with clients. And that is, what was the cause of the polarity flip, or as I call it, the energy flipping backwards?
In this particular case, I think it was the client wasn't ready to face or change what was going on in her life. It was the kind of the shock of, I got to do that. I'm not ready to do that kind of thing.
Oh boy. And usually what I find when the polarity flips, the energy flips backward, is that we've just gone through a significant emotional reset. And it was so overwhelming that it actually threw everything off. And we have to reset it and get back to forward again. So yes, good point. Just watching, because you're having them do their own muscle testing. You're external to them. You can watch. And when they start getting opposite answers to what would be logical, then it's time for that question. Let's check to see if your energy split backwards. They may not be able to determine that one. Typically, I have to ask, may I connect? May I check to see if your energy split after they've tested? Because their body's going to say, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
After that, and not realize that it's flipped.
Yeah. And that's why I said maybe just check it once in a while. I'm not crazy sensitive person who felt it switch when it happened. So
I
anyway,
usually do also, but we don't need to. We can observe it too. Pat, you had a
yes.
My questions is the terminology that you're using for energy, the energy flipping forward or the energy flipping back. Sometimes I feel my energy going forward, and then sometimes I'll feel it stagnant, and then sometimes I'll feel it coming in. So is that the same thing that you're talking about as energy? When you say yes or no as the energy?
Yes, that you're correct. The energy has changed. Yes.
And that would affect your yes and no's?
Yes.
And the visualization that I use is the light is going down the front, under the feet, up the back, and over the head. We're walking in a wheel of light. And if that energy has flipped so that we're walking in a backwards wheel, it's going to be really hard to make progress. And you can actually feel the difference typically. For me, I feel suddenly out of sorts. I feel tired, worn out, or I just feel impatient and unable to be patient with other people. It's obvious internally to me that I've suddenly had the energy slammed. It's not always obvious to everybody. Pat, you can feel that. You know when yours flips. I'm not sure everyone does.
And just maybe, if you're in a session working or something, and all of a sudden something just goes, oh, something's off. I think we all have a little bit of that intuition of something doesn't feel right. That's when I would check it.
So you're saying just say, this is my yes, this is my no, whatever their methodology is, and see if it's still getting correct yeses and nos. Okay.
Yes.
And I usually add the third question into that, Sarah. I add my energy flowing forward.
Okay.
This is my yes, this is my no. And so that all three of those questions need to be consistent and true. And if they're not, if any one of them is not true, then it probably means the energy's flipped.
Then you just command it to go forward.
You remember the 5 methods to tap on the top of the head,
Yes. Okay.
cross shoulders, visualize the wheel of light. And yes, a command will sometimes do it. Tap, commanding my energy to flip forward. Sometimes that will work. External proxy testing, you can actually go through the 5 or 6 methods and see which one will work the quickest for them, and then just suggest it if you got permission to connect to them. So. Any other questions around that topic? Thank you, Sarah. That is helpful. I appreciate it. And the work in harmony together, I love that idea, because that really is critical to us across the board anyway. And so why not ask for that at the end of every time we do a change, and perhaps even make that part of our underlying philosophy in everything that we do. So thank you. Valerie,
Yep.
What do you have to share?
Let's see. Well, a little side note is that you talked about formulas there. So this is not quite in a class, but that ear and nerve formula, I made my own and been practiced using that. So that's kind of fun. I'll tell you, a side effect is it makes you kind of drowsy. Did you know that? I think it's because it's got blue vervain in it, and I think black cohosh also I think is a relaxant. So anyway, it's just fun to make my own formula and experiment, because that's what Dr. Schultz said, make your own and practice it before you tell people about it. And now I can tell them what to expect, like it can make you kind of itchy. sometimes on your skin. At least that's my experience. So that was fun. But I wrote a couple things down. Now it's too dark to read it. Yeah, I guess one thing is just that I gotta admit I still really struggle with muscle testing. And I think there's something in my internal dialogue and so it's quite a struggle. It's not there all the time. And when I do foot zones, I kind of have to just rely on prayer. I try to muscle test and I'm not sure of it, and it's very frustrating. I don't know how it's gonna come. So there's that. And also this is just a side thing, but maybe there's something that I should have drawn from that class, but I love doing the foot zones and I kind of pour my whole self into it. I just love it. But after one, I'm so wiped out. It takes me an hour or so just to recover. And I imagine there's something I'm not doing right in that area. That
Can I
maybe,
come in? Are you going to be at the store this week?
Yeah.
Can I come by one day and just spend 30 minutes with you?
Oh yeah, I'll rub on your feet while you talk. So yeah,
Anyway,
I would love it.
maybe I can help you and maybe I can't, but it's worth a try.
Oh, I'd be so grateful. Yeah, I'll be very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love the progress and the learning process each one of you are doing. I'm going to share just maybe 5 minutes, and then we might end up ending early. We actually have a house showing at 10 o'clock, and who knows if I'm 100% ready or if I need to get one or two other things straightened up. We woke up to better get the bathroom cleaned and the kitchen cleaned and that kind of stuff every time. So Pat mentioned the constant learning process of the other brain functions, and the book that I've been digging through is actually downstairs, so I don't have the ability to share it, but let me I'll bring it up and I'll share it on the screen in a second. But just continuing learning, like you say, Sarah, you're constantly learning, and it's the process of constantly learning that we're adding things to what we know. Valley, you're learning about herbs and you're actually making them and doing them. Oh, before I forget it, if anyone wants to make mullein root and seed tincture, I think it's about time that I pull out those gangly, 20-some second-year plants, at least part of them. And it only takes one or two to make a very large amount of root and seed tincture. And the reason I'll mention this is combining the root and the seed together. The leaf is antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal, pain relieving, lung rebuilding, so forth. The root and seed tincture is really not well documented. In fact, the mullein seed, they say, is poisonous. No, it's just so quickly relaxing that when you throw a handful of mullein seed into a lake, the fish just relax and they all float to the top.
Oh, how funny. Oh, funny.
And so they can scoop them off with a net because they've all floated to the top. They're not dead. They're not poisoned. They just have relaxed. But the critical power of the mullein root and seed tincture is it will kill an infection very, very quickly. UTI is the one that we've had the most experience with. Urinary tract infections with the mullein root and seed tincture are completely wiped out within 24 hours to 48 hours if you take enough of it. And Winona got a chance to play with that again this week, going, uh-oh, I've got a UTI, I need the mullein root and seed. And of course, we had plenty of it in storage, so she just took it and said, okay, finally relief. But those are ready to pull out. Of course, if you haven't played with that before, just allow the root to dry. We wash it and cut it apart before it dries, because trying to cut that dried root is very hard. And even though that stalk is 10 foot tall, the root is only maybe that long, times about 8, and they get to about an inch around. So there's a lot of root there on each one of them. And then I think Valley, you shook some seeds out, and there's probably I'm guessing a half a cup of seeds in each one of those tops. And they're the tiny, tiny black seed. So I wouldn't shake them out anywhere you don't want them growing, because I've got them growing all over my yard, any place they've been shook out, which I don't mind. It's pretty easy to pull them out again. But and if anyone needs starts, I noticed in my garden there's another dozen starts growing right now, which I probably ought to dig out. So feel free to drop by, grab 1 or 2 of the second year stalks with the roots and the seeds. Bring some bags, because you're going to want to grab those seed tops in a bag, and then just wash and cut the roots up while they're still fresh, and then let them dry before you try and tincture them. And that's an alcohol tincture. I would be better off asking Winona how full she filled it, but typically we fill the jar roughly half to 2/3 full, and then fill it the rest of the way full of alcohol. And
Would that be like a quart jar or a small jar?
a quart typically, because you're filling it the rest of the way with a quart of pure grain vodka, alcohol. And so
But when you take the tincture, do you take very much? Because I mean, then you're drinking alcohol.
a dropper full, or 3 or 5, depending on how many you muscle test for. But
Okay.
I know with my father-in-law, that tincture, because he had a catheter, because he was paralyzed, he, for probably, I've known him for 15 years, and for probably 99% of that time, he had a urinary tract infection of some kind or another.
Yeah.
Partly because he insisted on changing his own catheters and so forth, and he didn't follow cleanliness procedures until he got in our home, and we had total control over catheter change, and the nurse was doing it with proper cleanliness procedures, and we killed the UTI as soon as he got here. He didn't have a UTI the rest of the time he was in our home. But we used the mullein root and seed tincture to kill it. And then he liked it also. I'll mention this secondary benefit. He had headaches constantly, and he asked if he could have the mullein root and seed tincture next to his chair on the stand, and he would take 2 or 3 dropperfuls every day. And because it cleared his headaches. That is not typical to clear a headache with mullein, because mullein usually is more effective on pain that is structural. But the mullein root and seed tincture was strong enough that it would actually clear a persistent headache. And I think his was somewhat structural because of paralysis, and his back wasn't always aligned properly, and so forth. Anyway, that's the what's ready to harvest in the yard. If you want to make some, it's my intention to make at least one good sized jar, because it's so powerful.
So do you just
and then I want to just share briefly the other few things we're testing for, as Pat mentioned, in the brain. And it's coming from, let me bring the book name up. Coming from Stop Alzheimer's Now. Let me see if I can get it to come up enough to. I don't know if you can see the subtitle on that or not. Let me see if I can raise that. Stop Alzheimer's Now, How to Prevent and Reverse Dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, multiple sclerosis, and other neurodegenerative disorders. And Down syndrome, anything that has been nerve damaging is addressed in the book. And I'll mention what else we're testing for, and then just a quick change that my wife and I did. And this is thrift books they've got on Amazon too, and so forth. Okay. I just grabbed the first picture that I could find. Amazon's probably a little easier to read the reviews and stuff on it. And
Cool.
he goes through the different sections of the brain and nutrition and how it affects it. And probably the biggest eye opener to me was natural diet. Get the sugars out of the diet. Because insulin resistance, Alzheimer's being called diabetes 3 because of insulin resistance. And so that's one of the causes of the brain degradation, is that there's processed sugars in the diet. And so just getting the sugars out of the diet. And then he cited a bunch of studies on what coconut oil will do to increase or protect the brain. Now, I think it's called MCT oil, which is an extract of coconut. And he recommends coconut oil 5 tablespoons a day. He cites some studies with MCT. I will give you my take on MCT oil, and that is just take coconut oil, because they don't always extract the MCT from coconut. Sometimes they get it from other oils. And just like all natural products, let's get it the way God designed it in its whole form, instead of taking it as an extract that man decided was the magic bullet solution. Because my conclusion is that when we take things extracted, it may have a quicker effect, but it may also have some long-term damage. I saw that this week with a client who said he started taking a drug that gave him immediate relief from something that he'd had for a long time, but he didn't correct the problem. And so 5 years later now, he is really, really struggling in that he can't get off the drug. The problem's not corrected. And we're really struggling to rebuild the neurological system because the drug damaged the neurological system farther, instead of correcting the initial issue, which was a lack of calcium and no food for the nerves. So really, really struggling to get off the drug and rebuild the lack of calcium outcomes, which was multiple for him: neurological degradation and restless leg, and trying to get multiple things corrected at the same time. So let's take things in their whole form. Let's correct the nutritional deficiencies or the power out deficiencies, those things at the beginning. Now, what else are we testing for in brain centers? Pat, you mentioned basal ganglia, and that's at the center of the brain. And all I'm doing is I'm testing, is the basal ganglia working at 100%? And in most of the clients with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, so forth, we're finding that it's not working at 100%. What do? We ask it to work at 100%, commanding my basal ganglia to work at 100%, and then consistently doing that for a week or two. until it decides to catch up. The other function of the brain that we're testing now that came out of that book is the substantia nigra, Nigra, substantia nigra. And Pat, which one of those had a left and a right that we test? I'm trying to remember
The nigra. Yes, central nigra had the right and left and two different parts to it.
Okay. So we test both the right and the left of the substantia nigra and see if it's functioning at 100%. And then, of course, command it to function at 100%. And now that I have heard from you, Sarah, working in harmony, I'm going to add that to it, because once we ask those to work at 100%, clearly they're not going to work in harmony unless we ask them to. So, because we just move something up, something that has to move down. So left and right substantia nigra, basal ganglia as a single, ask them to work at 100%. And the dopamine and any other chemicals that are typical in the brain, ask what their percentage is, because most of those, I found that they're slightly off if we test them. And then we just ask them to work at 100%. And a little tidbit, how to get the dopamine absorption working properly. Kava kava is the single plant that increases the capability of the body to absorb dopamine. So that's the other thing that you can do to ensure if their dopamine's not managing properly, not absorbing properly. Kava kava is the single plant that does that. Questions around that? We're at 9 minutes till, and I realize I've only got 3 or 4 minutes before I've got to drop off and close things up, so I'm ready for a showing.
Will we do this again?
Good question. And if we look out 4 or 5 weeks, is everyone good just to do a Saturday morning, 9 o'clock? I'll pop one on the calendar then and send a.
I'm wondering if anybody, if like Valley would be open. I mean, I would be open to doing the legwork on it, but to having a group get together to make a tincture like you've done, I would really like to do that.
Oh, yeah. And then I have a question related to that because I can't turn it off. I'm thinking about it all the time, but I want to connect with somebody that can help make us aware of other local herbs we can go and forage. I know about some, and I was going to try to find Stephen Horn, see if I can connect with him, but maybe later, Fred, if you know someone, unless you're available, but you're so swamped. So
I do have a friend, Robin, that knows a lot of plants. Maybe that she might be one, but there could be others.
I love that. I love that you're going forward and jumping in. I'm going to let Tasha in just as we close, so that we can, and then we'll share the video out so that you have the capability of learning from what.
And, you know, put the little, you know, rubbery things around it.
And welcome, Tasha. We're just closing. I've got to close here in about 2 minutes. Do you have anything to share? And then I will share the video out so that everyone can see what the notes are as we're trying to keep up. And we'll also get another meeting sent out for next month. I think I've got at least 1 more month that I am in control of my own schedule.
can I throw in a super fast thing while we're waiting for Tasha? Another thing, maybe by the next meeting. No, that sounded like I set a deadline or a mandate. That wasn't it. But another thing I think would be so valuable is, I know, Fred, you've helped people rehabilitate their knee or their leg, or people that rehabilitate their lungs. And when I share with people about Dr. Christopher's remedies, they don't believe it. And it would be such a nice thing to have a library of people that they can call and say, hey, did it work? And then that'll get them on board, and they can. So I think that'd be a valuable thing.
I like that.
People.
Tasha, anything to share? We've got just about 2 minutes. You're
Sorry.
muted. There you are.
On mute. Sorry. No, sorry, my sister's here for her birthday and I lost track of time. No, I'll just be interested to listen to the recording.
Okay, we'll get that sent out. So good to see each one of you. And I love that you want to get a group together and keep learning about the herbal, keep practicing the tools that you know, because that's really what's going to make a difference here in the St. George area, is to keep practicing. If there's any of you that I haven't mentioned to, Winona and I are actually, yes, the house is for sale. Once it's sold, we're anticipating putting in papers to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So we will not be probably available for calls and stuff after that point, month and a half or 2 months, 3 months from now. Who knows how long that'll take. But so I love that you're developing a team here that you can keep things building, using each other, helping each other on that kind of stuff. I must drop off. I can turn over the conversation to you if you want to, if anyone wants to stay on, or we'll look forward to meeting in a month.
And will you guys stay on for just 1 minute? I have a question for the group.
Okay, I'm going to just drop out.
Is there a certain time that we can come get the plants that you prefer?
Most evenings work. So just feel free to do that whenever. And
You just went on mute, Fred. Okay.
I just wanted, I don't have a list of you guys' names and stuff that we could have, have a little group text or group email or something. So my question is, does any of you have a list of all of our names? Because I don't have it.
I think on the email that Fred sent to invite us to this meeting,
It would be on there.
the people that he sent it to.
Okay, I'll check that out. I hope that's the case. And then maybe I'll send out something and maybe we can get something going where at least I want to learn more about the herbs, and maybe we can support each other in this process of helping other people too, so.
I think our emails will be on there, but our phone numbers won't.
Okay. Well, I can go ahead and maybe email you for your phone number, something like that.
Can we just quickly give each other's phone numbers now and I can write them down? Is that a good idea?
Yeah.
That's okay. This is
Okay.
Lynn. It's 43. Well, you have mine.
I have, but maybe everybody would like it. Do you want to say
Okay,
it for
sorry.
everyone?
Lynn, 435-313-3106.
Okay.
I really
Valerie,
like. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, mine next?
is someone gonna start a group text or do I need to write all these down?
I can start one. This is Lynn. I'll start one.
I appreciate, Lynn, that you're going to do this. I think learning more about herbs is something I really like to know, especially when you're talking about putting herbs together and how to mix them together and alcohol and stuff. That's all foreign to me. So
Right. I want to learn it too because I think it would be powerful. So
yeah.
What's your
And
number, Pat?
it's 209-606-2611.
Okay. How about Tasha?
435-862-2906.
Okay. Deb?
435-703-8499.
Valerie?
435-215-77. Yeah, 215-7794.
Sarah?
435-619-5221.
Did I get everyone? I'm trying to look on this thing. Is that everybody? Did everyone give me their number? Yes?
I think so. 6 of us.
Okay, I'll send out a text for that for all of us, and we'll get started with at least, we can share thoughts, share possibilities with each other that come up. If you're open to that, I am.
Yeah, I like
Definitely.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Lynn.
Great.
Thanks, all of you.
All right.
I'd like to go to Fred's and pick up that mullein that he's talking about and then try to figure out what you're supposed to do
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, let's start with that.
Valerie, you can teach us. You've done tinctures.
Yeah, I have done. They're easier than you think. They're really easy. So
But it would
that'd
be
be
fun.
fun.
Yeah.
I want to
and
go
kind
find
of
some cedar berries and juniper berries if we're up that way too. Those would be awesome to have.
cool.
So
All right. Well, I'm ready to check out. How about you guys?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, everybody.
yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.